what's up, everyone? This is Bob and Chris for Join and Die Podcast. Today is Saturday, May 31st, 2025, and we're doing something a little bit different today. We are joined with Sharrod Davis and FOP Lodge 5 presidential candidate, Knute Mellon. Sharrod Davis had reached out to me and asked if we were interested in doing an interview with Knute. And of course, we jumped at the opportunity. This is the first time, as far as I know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time that an FOP presidential candidate has been on any podcast, possibly, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but if it is a first, then we're happy to have it. Of course, we're honored to give anybody an opportunity to come on here and speak and tell their side and explain why they're running for an important position like FOP Lodge 5 presidential candidate. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this off to Sharrod Davis first. He'll do a little introduction of himself. Sharrod, go for it.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having us. Yeah, so when we had talked before and I found out that you had a podcast and I looked it up and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing to know somebody that even has the gumption to have a podcast. I said, so, when the opportunity came to be on the team with Knute, I figured it would probably be one of the very first things we should do is reach out to you and sit down and have a conversation with a fellow lodge member. So myself, I've been in the police department for 22 years. 2 years prior to that with SEPTA Police. I've been in the 23rd District. I was in the Psych Unit, Anti-Crime Unit. From there, I went to the 14th District. From the 14th District, Highway Patrol, Civil Affairs, and now the Captain's Aid in the 2nd District. So I've bounced around and done a myriad of things. I've also worked in community crime prevention and community relations. So I have a full gamut of what it is about the police department. Also, I am an ordained deacon at Enoch Tabernacle Baptist Church, one of the largest churches in Philadelphia. I just came back today from a mentoring program with the police department and fire department. So once Knute reached out to me, I prayed about it. I talked to my wife. I talked to my mentors. I talked to people I respected, and they said, why not? Why not if you believe in change? And Knute really had a vision for change. Knute, who I believe is prepared to handle a role of that nature. And Knute has flown a helicopter. Knute has been on the ground with the cops before. He's an instructor at the police academy. So he's really has also ran the gamut of what it is to be in leadership. So I believe he's one of the executive officers at the police academy. So this guy right here is the real deal. No matter what you hear or say, just by coming alongside of him, we prayed together. We talked about our families. You guys will thoroughly enjoy.
How you guys doing? Thanks for having us tonight. It's kind of exciting to hear that this may be the first podcast that you guys had with the FOP presidential candidate. That's pretty cool. Which kind of goes along with a lot of the stuff we've been talking about with change coming. How much policing has changed to the point with now we have an election going on, which we haven't had in so long, and we're doing it on a podcast. Technology has changed. The department has changed our lives, and now here we're four of us sitting in 3 different locations having this conversation. It's pretty awesome. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out to let us come on.
Man, no problem at all. Like I said, we jumped at the opportunity. I don't know if you guys saw our show, any of our shows before, but it's basically me and just Chris kind of venting about what's going on in the world. That's pretty much what our show was. We're going to start to try to do the transition into the interview process of podcasting. And this is our first, well, we had one before where I interviewed a gym owner. So this technically will be our second one. But this is the first time we're doing it virtually like this. So hopefully everything turns out okay and we don't have too many issues. All right. With that said, Chris, you got anything before we start?
No, go for it.
All right, fellas. So we're going to move on to the interview part of the questions part of the interview. So without further ado, the first question, and it's pretty. I'm sure you're probably you're ready for this one. Why did you decide to run for FOP Lodge 5 president?
So I started to think about it probably well over a year ago when I started going to the meetings and hearing different things that were going on in the union that I wasn't aware of. I feel like I had to do something. I had to get involved into some capacity. So the more and more I was going to the meetings, the more and more I was listening to what's going on, the more and more research I was hearing from the guys on the ground that are out there every day doing the job. People were unhappy. People didn't know what was going on, and they weren't informed. And I didn't think that was right. I believe that everyone should have a voice. It's our union. And I felt like so many people were disconnected, and it was just going through the motions. And when you stood at the meetings, at one point, they were 15 minutes long. And I thought, how could you have a 15-minute long meeting for a union this size with this many important things going on? I'm the president for the ice hockey board for the school board down here where I live, where my kids go. And we have meetings sometimes 2-3 hours. I said, and that's only with 6 hockey teams. How are we doing a meeting at the union for what we're dealing with and the stuff going on that quick? Stuff needs to be addressed. Stuff needs to be taken care of. People need to know what's going on. So through all that, I knew I had to get involved. And the more and more I kept going and the more and more I kept hearing what was going on, I knew I had to make a change. I had a conversation with my wife, and she said to me, it's the same reason you got involved in every organization, because things had to change. Things had to be better. You had to bring more to the table for whatever the organization may be. And if you don't do it now, you're going to regret it. And then that was when I decided to start looking into this.
Okay. Well, that's good that you had the support of your wife.
Yeah.
All right. So what is it about how the current FOP is being run that you want to see change?
So first, I like to always say, the FOP, the guys up there, they've been up there the majority of the time I've been on the job. And there's a lot of great things they've done.
How long have you been on the job? I'm sorry.
I had 23 years I've been on the job. I started off in the 25th district, where I was in regular line squad, 5 squad. I did plainclothes, bikes, dirt bikes. I was a ComStat officer for a short stint in the 25th. Went on to aviation. I flew the police helicopters for about 8 years, a little over 8 years. And then from there, I transferred up to the training bureau, where I've been the executive officer for coming up on 6 years now. Okay. So the majority of my entire career, it's been the same regime up there. And they did a lot of great things for this department. They really did. I never will take that away from a lot of them guys. The team has evolved and changed through those times, with some people moving and going. But what needs to change is that now policing has changed. Like we were just talking about earlier, we're doing a podcast right now. If you go back, if the elections are every 3 years, you go back 3 years from now and 3 years before that, where were we at? How much has changed in the last 6 years, the last 9 years, 12, 15, 18, pretty much as long as they've been up there. Policing has changed so much. So when people ask me, what is it that you really want to change? It's pretty much everything from A to Z. You take what it is, and I'm not saying wipe it clean and start over, by no means. You look at what has holes in it and you build from the holes up. The stuff that's working, you build off of that and make it better. So we want to change a lot of the communication. So many people at roll calls we went to, they have no idea what's going on. Some of them didn't even know there was an election. Some didn't even know how that we voted. That needs to be set out there. They need to know what they have to do. This is their union. These people are making decisions for them and their family, and they have no idea. Communication in the lines of the meetings. They go through meetings and they read the minutes, boom, 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 in a couple seconds, and then we're moving on, right? If you're not at that meeting, you don't know what happened. If they're going to vote on something, that should be set out. Why does the whole department not get a message that we're going to vote on this tonight at the meeting, or we're going to vote on this in a month from now, so that gives everybody a heads up that wants to come up and speak about it, come on up and we can get a good solid vote. That's what we want to do. We have any major changes, set a date in the future. Let everyone be aware of what we're talking about doing. So the change is going all over. Transparency. I keep talking about transparent. The only way people are going to feel comfortable with the people that are in office is if you're transparent with them and you can see and show them everything that goes on. For example, with the hockey board, my budget's probably somewhere around $170,000. Not a lot of money, but every transaction is sent out. We do a list of the finances, and we send out to every parent that has paid a check to us so they can understand where this money's going and what it was spent on and how much down to the penny is in the bank account and what everything's being used for. People have questions about where money's going, why money isn't being spent here, why is it going over there? Is it going here? That should be everybody should be able to see that. There should be no questions at all when it comes to money, right? And I think most people agree with me on that one. Accountability, I run on accountability as well. If people aren't doing their jobs, they have to be held accountable. I'm not just saying that about people in the positions that we're running against. I'm talking about the entire city that makes decisions for us. This election is the only time that most of us can have a choice in what goes on with our lives in this department, right? We can choose who we put up where to fight for us. Hold people accountable. People at the pension board. People are going in the drop and waiting 4 years. And then boom, they got to wait another year to get their first pension check. That's completely ridiculous and unacceptable. We were told a story on one of our when we were out visiting that a lady retires after the drop and passes away in a year and never received one check. Wow. That is unacceptable. You don't put this time in and this much energy and passion for this job and give up and sacrifice so much stuff to not even get one pension check. That's unacceptable. Somebody's got to be held accountable for that. Where are these people and what are they doing? Back to our pay. People talk about our raises and this and that. That's a small part. But yeah, somebody's got to be held accountable for why we're not getting the raises. We are the lowest paid police department in the entire area. And that's why we're bleeding out people to other these small townships. Change, the accountability, the transparency, all that. We have to bring it all together and grow from what we have in that union already, the good stuff that we do have.
Okay. All right.
Especially, I was just going to say, especially if you're retiring, they have the date. They know when you're retiring. Why don't they have your check ready? I can understand it could be 30 days, 40. I get that. I'm not saying it has to be ready just like that, but a year, 6 months, it's inexcusable. You know 4 years in advance when I'm retiring. Why isn't that money ready almost immediately?
I had an officer who recently retired. Still recently, but she just got her first pension check. I think it was last week, and she's been retired for almost 2 years. So recently retired is,
that's crazy.
Recent, but it's absolutely crazy.
And you get no interest on that. So they're accumulating. They're accumulating your interest, and then you get it maybe at a lower rate because of inflation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, that's
where's all
something. Go ahead, Knute.
No, I'm sorry. I was agreeing with you. Where's the interest money go? Why are we not getting that too? Why is someone not holding that person? Okay, if it's going to take us 6 months, what's our interest rate and what's the back pay we're going to get on that? What's the bonus on that?
It's a good point.
If you want to hold it, pay me for it.
Yeah, it's a good point because I'm sure you're not getting the 6 months of that you're waiting for. Yeah, it's a good point. Before I go on to the next question, though, this isn't a part of it, but I was wondering myself. So Knute Mellon, where did Knute come from? Is it your middle name or?
Nah, so Knute was my real name's Charles, but when I was born, my uncle he was a mailman. He passed away, and his name was Knute. And my family's big Irish Notre Dame Catholic football fans, and Knute Rockne. My uncle was named after him. So I was born shortly after he passed, and they gave me his nickname, and it just kind of stuck. I started playing football at a young age, and the name Knute just stuck with it, and it just kind of grew. It's almost like Charles is my alias, and Knute's my real name.
Alias. All right. So I'll go on to the third question. Multiple people or teams are running for this position that you're running for as we're conducting this interview right now today. So what makes you different from them?
So, the issue with the three teams that we're having is a lot of the three teams are pretty much have a lot of the same views. They're all looking to change things. From my point of view, our team is the most solid team. We have a full slate. We have multiple players in backup positions for our full slate. We have been working night and day on this campaign for everything we have going on. some of the other slates, you don't even know who they are. You're not sure if they have a full slate. You know, a couple players here, a couple players there. Kenny Rossiter, I talk to Kenny Rossiter probably several times a week. Get along great with the guy. Joe Coyle, I see him every now and again. I still don't know who's on his slate. I think at this point, we are 30 days away from getting our petitions. If we don't have our full slates and we're not rocking and rolling and you're not out there in the community getting in front of people, what is it that you're going to do by the time the election comes around, by the time that the October's here and they're announcing? If you're not working now, I mean, we started back in January with our team and we were behind the eight ball. We were working, or still are working around the clock. I can't imagine how these people are not out there talking to the officers, talking to the retirees. Retirees are our unforgotten field. Those guys make up majority of our union. We went to the luncheon and talked to them, and it was great, but they are forgotten. And I ask, has anyone else been around to speak? Nobody has spoke to them. Nobody. So if you want to talk about who's doing what, the incumbents have the advantage. They've been doing it for a while. We're fighting uphill battle with them. But the other teams, I don't see them out focusing on what's going to happen and what they want to do for the members. Some stuff is going one way with discovering things, which I'm thankful for because it opens our eyes to stuff. Joe Coyle's team, I'm really not sure what they're doing. I haven't really heard much about it or what his plan is. So I think at this time, we're the strongest team that's running right now. Our momentum's going. We have a really good rapport with the officers on the ground. Our social media has been really doing awesome. The amount of emails and messages we get directly from members of all throughout the city and units and retirees, it keeps us very busy and we love it. It's good to hear these questions and their concerns and kind of helps us keep our momentum going. So I don't see how either of the other two teams would come close to matching with us.
You mentioned retirees, and you see these guys, they have 30, 35 years on the job, retired, and they're probably in their 60s, maybe 70s, and some of these guys are going off $800-900 a month pension checks because they retired so long ago. I don't even know if it's possible, so I'm just going to pose the question. Is it possible to have a cost of living increase for people's pensions, especially the guys who are already retired? I mean, again, they're living off under $1,000 a month for a pension because they retired so long ago. Is that even a possibility? Is that something the FOP with the pension board, could that even be brought up to have a cost of living increase?
Chris, a phenomenal question, and probably every retiree I talk to asks me the same question. And yes, the fire department has it. They have a COLA. The COLA is the cost of living adjustment. They received it. And I said to the retirees, there's no reason any department in this city should have a better plan than the police department. If anything, we should be the same. If the fire department has COLA, why does the police department retirees not have COLA? Why is it not in there? The cost of living is, you can look, I think for 2025, they have a gauge right now between 2 and 2.5%. 2.5%. That some of these people retired years ago. You take that money and you start counting that up. Those pension checks aren't anything. I tell the recruits now, if you think you came on this job and you're going to live off your pension, you have another thing coming. You have to. We have to really plan for our future, and that's what a lot of the problem is right now with this 401k that's going on and the matching contributions that us members are given. I have a serious problem with that. Why are we paying for certain people's retirements when we have all those retirees that don't even have COLA? They should at least have COLA, and there should be other things. We had I think it was Sharrod, I think it was you. We were at the survivors benefit, and we said, why do we not have one of these for the retirees? Why is there not a retiree benefit? We need to do more for the retirees. And I'll tell you what, if we build up something for the retiree and we work on that, and everyone says, oh, you can't. I love hearing I can't. People told me I wasn't going to graduate high school. People told me I wasn't going to go to college. People told me I wasn't going to get on the police department. I wasn't going to fly a helicopter. I wasn't going to buy businesses. I love when they tell me I can. It just challenges me. Tell them, watch me, okay? So the more... Yeah, and it does. It fuels my fire.
Want to. Can't, we always
What's that?
About it. Can't means I don't want to. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's absolutely, unless you sit there and say, I need you to jump over a mountain. The word, when they say you can't, that just means I don't want to. And if for retirees, if you've got 25 or 30 years on the job, maybe you retired a long time ago, but if your SSI check is trumping your pension check, that is a problem. That is
Huge.
a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just look, people told us that we can't have a podcast with 37 subscribers, but we're at 41 now, so look at that. You never know. You never know.
42. I'm going to join when we get off.
Yeah. 42. Okay, good.
No, but it is true, man. They can't tell us we can't. I mean, with those retirees, you go to the luncheon and you go to meet up with them and you look at them and you know what they sacrificed and you know what they went through to get to where they are. They should be getting a lot more. And there's going to be ways we're going to figure it out. There's got to be more we could do. And the more we do is only going to help us on retention with the new people coming in, because the new people coming in, they're coming and they're leaving. They're coming in for a little bit and they're leaving. That retention's a problem. Recruitment's there. We're getting them coming. We're not keeping them. And that's what we got to do. We got to keep them and get them to that end zone. And once they get over there, if if that's all bright and rainbow and shining and they want to get down there and there's good stuff for them, they're going to stay. We're going to keep that retention, at least a 30-year plan of some sort. And who's to say we can't start a different pension plan for new people coming in, right? It may not affect everybody that's in here now, but can we get that one started for the future of the department as well?
Yeah, that kind of, you know what? I know you got your question, but I figured
it's not your turn yet.
This goes right into what we were talking about. Like,
go ahead.
So what part of it was like, literally one of the questions I had, I only had two. It was about a retention problem and cops transferring to other departments or retiring early. We were talking about what's, basically how do you stop the mass exodus? And it was like, I'm glad that you brought it up. So it's like, we're out here in Bucks County. I mean, cops, they start within 2 or 3 years. They're at 120, 130, not counting overtime. And I know I have a family member who works in Tredyffrin. They're maxing out. Cops are maxing out at almost 150. That's not overtime. And then they can retire in 15 years. They go by fractions, not percentages. But if you did the conversion, it's basically like 47 or 48%. So if you retire in 15 years, you're getting almost half of $150,000. So you can be like 35 years old and walk away with $75,000. It's like there's no way to compete against something like that unless you start to up your game a little bit. So I'm just glad that we were talking, because you went right into where I was talking. But I mean, is there any other ways you talked about of trying to find a way other than using our academy to get MPO'd and certified and then going out to Ben Salem or somewhere else? I mean, is there anything else that you?
So you mean like besides coming through the academy? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, when I was up at the range, we had a class of, I think, 45 people, maybe a little less, maybe 43. And on graduation day, I believe literally seven people turned their rigs on graduation day, turned their equipment in because they already had jobs in the surrounding areas. And I think another 3 or 4 left within 6 months. So you basically lost 25% of that class in 6 months. I mean, I don't know how you stop something like that. I mean, I can't sit here and say I would blame them. I mean, would I rather make 120 or 80? Would I rather be respected or not?
Without overtime.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's a problem. There's competition out there, and I think one of the biggest problems isn't just the money, but it's the respect.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got to get a better picture in here, because nobody wants to sit there and have to go to the 25th district and be hated for minimum money in this field. So
Chris, then you go into the fact that these people are going to the districts and they're sitting there and they're working day in and day out for years and years, and they're trying to transfer just to another district, and that's not happening. Why is that not happening?
Right.
You got a plethora of officers and supervisors that want to move to just other areas for a different scenery, doing the same job, just asking for a different scenery. Somebody should take that entire sheet and just start moving everybody around and get as many of them going as possible. It gives somebody a little bit of hope, a little bit of change on the job. It builds up camaraderie. But to get back to the retention, what you were saying with the officers handing their rigs in, being at the academy, they'll come halfway through the academy and they're like, I got an offer to go to the state police. I got an offer to go to Abington. I don't know what to do. I'm like, I can't answer that question for you. Like, you have to weigh it out and think about what's best for you and your family. But the thing that I think would help is that goes back to when we're talking about change. The kids coming in now, they don't really just want dangling overtime in front of them. That doesn't really impress them much. They want more events, more time out with their family. They want to be, hiking. They want to be going on trips. They want their own time. So there's more that's going on with the whole change of the department that people are not looking at. And I feel like a lot of the issues are just throw money at people, throw overtime. Well, a lot of these younger kids in their 20s, they're not looking. They want to work their days and they want to have their days off, right? They don't want to be forced to stay after their shift. They don't want to be canceling days off. They don't want any of that. Then they got a township outside here that's working 4 days on and 12-hour shifts and making way more money. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wait, I can work 17 days a month and make more money than I am right here. And they're going. Everything has to change. And people, I don't think, are looking at the change in the culture of the officers that are coming into the police department now.
That's a big difference there. You can't compare. Everybody's like Generation X type people to Generation Z or whatever. Like, it's just two totally different personalities, and you can't have the same personality. You can't blame them. Look, everybody knows what happened. You walk away a little bitter from the job, and these kids are like, I want my days off. I want to be with my family. I can't sit there and blame you. It's tough to sit there and blame them nowadays, because I think they see what it does now, because everything's on. We didn't have social media back in the early 2000s when we started, so we didn't know about all the stuff that cops really go through, unless you had cops in the family or something like that. But I think now these cops see what becomes, they're on their third marriage, or they don't talk to their kids, or whatever. And I think the young cops, you differ from them a lot, but I can't sit there and disagree where it's like, no, you should put your family behind you. You should definitely pay more attention to the job if the job treats you the way it does. So you can't really blame them. So there has to be some kind of, halfway point where, hey, you have a job where you're going to be required to work some holidays, but at the same time, you shouldn't be disregarding your family on your RDOs.
Absolutely right. And I even say, like, so for me to come home and say to my wife, hey, I know we had plans this weekend, but they canceled my days off. My wife's going to give me some grief. It's going to be it's my job. What do you want me to do? But then I go back to the female officer who has to go home and tell her husband, who's not a cop, hey, I can't go with you and the kids this weekend because I just got my days canceled off. That's a whole different conversation. So when you talk to some of the female officers, it opened my eyes recently with 23 years on the job, how that conversation is completely different. It's not the same conversation that me and my wife have, because here she is telling her husband, you got to go do all the running around. And we all know when it comes to like going to the amusement park for the day or Hershey Park, like, it's an exhausting day with the kids. And now someone's got to go do it by themselves because our days off are canceled. Two separate conversations that I think are just unseen at times.
That's a good point.
That's good, yeah.
All right, so next question is, the current president has many years experience in the FOP and in the bargaining process. Have you ever experienced contract negotiations before? If not, why should members vote for someone who does not have that experience as opposed to a candidate or an incumbent that does possess that kind of experience? So
that question comes up a lot when they start talking about this. And I know a lot of people get worried when it comes to contract negotiations and arbitrations and this and that. We as a union have a lot of attorneys that do a lot of this work. Contracts on my end, in my experience, I'm not just a police officer. My wife owns a corporation which we buy and sell businesses. So doing contracts in a different way, I've done lots of them. We will go in and buy a failing business, negotiate prices, negotiate tangibles, what's payable, what's not, rewrite the books, and sometimes we sell that business before we even open the door. It's not that I've done them in the police department, but I've done a lot of them outside of the department. Along with that, our team, we have a bunch of members on our team that are in the same boat. Real estate guys, we have business guys, lots of talent in negotiating business deals. And I'm not just talking small deals. I'm talking major deals, opening major companies. This is something that we're going to bring that aspect to it. If you remember, I don't know if you were there, Chris, I think you were at the meeting, the very first time I took the mic back, I think it was the beginning of October. And the very first question I asked the current president, I said, is this a business? And he paused and he said, yes. I said, is this being run as a business? And he said, yes. Right there, I knew if that's the case, then I can handle anything. There's no way that I can't take that entire home association and lodge, go through those books, and create a much more profitable area. I asked them, what's their open door number? Meaning, how much does it cost to open this door? Every day, that number should vary depending on manpower, staffing. Nobody could give me that number up there. I said, you can't open these doors for profit if you don't know that number.
Right.
I said, what's your COGS, what's your cash flow, and what's your profit? They couldn't give me that. I said, at one point they told me the cash flow and the profits are the same number. I said, if your cash flow and your profits are the same number, you don't know what your numbers are. It's got to be separate. So when it comes to negotiating contracts and negotiating businesses, I welcome it. I love it. Because guess what? The one thing I can promise you this is numbers don't lie. So we want to get into the arbitrations and things and the laws. We have attorneys for all that, right? I'll sit down with plenty of attorneys. I've done it hundreds of times for business aspects. You sit down with them, you negotiate, you figure out what you want, what you need. They're going to tell you the legality ends of all of it, and you'll figure it out together, right? Then they go and do their job as attorneys. One thing we do have, a secret weapon, is I can't reveal the name, but we have a very strong attorney that is going to be part of us and help once we get in October. And then we have another attorney who's actually an active member finishing up law school with a concentration in union, who is going to be joining us and helping us out with that. So I'm excited for them to get done the one to get done school and jump in with us and really dive into the whole arbitration process, disciplinary process, and have these two individuals work together, because we're going to see a lot of changes. It's going to be big.
Now, just a follow up before I send it over to Chris for his question. Now, the whole answer that you said was a great answer, and honestly, who does have that experience when they first get involved anyway? You kind of have to gain that experience at some point, right? Like, I'm sure some people who were president before, even before McNesby,
yes,
I'm sure they didn't have the experience they had when they got into it. So a lot of people, like, I've seen that question asked on social media a lot. Well, go with experience, and it seems like that's Roosevelt Poplar's kind of thing, like, go with the experience. But at one point, you didn't have the experience.
You don't start with 20 years of experience.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah,
right. Day one, everybody has day one. You don't start with 20 years on.
Mm-hmm. So I don't really question. It was really just a follow up on that. I kind of just want to add on to that. The experience thing, I do think it's important. When it comes to contracts, now here's the follow up. When it comes to contracts, you got Team Poplar, who is currently negotiating our next contracts. If that happens to be a good contract, does that kind of worry you and your team? Like, oh man, like that's going to kind of blow the wind out of our sails, or no?
Me and Sharrod just had this conversation, and I'm going to let Sharrod answer this question because he answers it best. Go ahead, Sharrod.
Well, thank you for having us once again. But we are more than just a contract, okay? Contract comes up every 3 to 4 years. You have everyday problems. So the officers that's having marital problems are not worried about a contract right now because their lives are falling apart. So the officer that's getting disciplined because he didn't set his body camera wasn't on fast enough as he chased the suspect down with a gun, and he makes an arrest, and the suspect get a boo-boo, and they got to do a use of force, and they're going to look at the camera, and they say, you didn't turn your camera on fast enough. That guy's not worried about a contract because now he knows that they sent it over to, it's going up, and might be getting a set of 18s. The officers who are having mental issues at the time, and they're contemplating ending their life, are not thinking about a contract. So we're more than just contracts. The office, you got to also think about the retirees. They are no longer part of the contract process. And when you look at it, eventually, I believe right now it's probably almost more retirees than there are active officers. So they're pretty much out of the contract process. So so we have to expound our thinking beyond the contract. And those contracts is only going to last you probably 25 to 30 years of your life. Now on the police department, so most people, the average age when I came on was around 25 ish. So if you do 25, 30 years, you're 55. So you're going to live another 30 years, 30, 40 years, God willing. And you're going to be out of that contract process, but you'll still be a member of the FOP. So I think a lot of people need to get that one portion out of their mind. What if we get a good contract? Is it over for you? No, we're more than just contracts. And to even piggyback a little bit off of what Knute had expounded upon as far as with the retirees, at our church, we're getting ready to pay off our mortgage. And with that, our pastor had a brilliant idea to say, after we pay off our mortgage for this building, what are we going to do with that same money that we bring in? So what we plan on doing is through God's grace, is hopefully doing some reinvestments within the community. So why can't we kind of look at where we at with the building? I don't believe we should. I believe I heard there is a mortgage on the building, but if there is, why? But if once that building is paid off, why are we not looking at a revenue sharing process with the retirees, right? We're bringing in enough money. We got the catering hall. We have the bar with 7C, which is packed every Friday, Saturday night, Thursday nights. There's always an event. So I believe that there can be a way to pump money into the retirees' pockets very easily for the sacrifices that they have given us. I mean, particularly in a time when they were not making a lot of money. And why not? Why not? Let's start taking a look at increasing some money into the retirees beyond the box and trying to figure out another pension plan or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
We got money coming in. We have a beautiful building that brings in a lot of money. It's a lot of people want to come there just because of family, but people come there to feel safe. Then another thing, going back also on the issue of retention, is that the thing that we wear on our left shoulder is known as a patch. Is not treated as a brand. You know, when you have when you look at some of the major companies, you have Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and those companies that they're a brand. They sell you a brand. They're not selling you just the drink. It's the brand, right? The color of the bottle, everything about it, the words, everything is written in a specific way to let you know that this is a brand. Well, that patch on your shoulder is supposed to be looked at as a brand. And that goes to the powers that be to start treating it like a brand. And if the powers that be start treating it like a brand, you'll have retention, right? So then you'll look at also, and you said the respect factor. Well, we do know that we have an issue with somebody sitting over there on 1300 South Broad Street who believed that it was a political expedient to say that I'm going to go after police officers. And he never said based upon any of a crime or anything of that nature, but I'm just going to go after him. And we just seen what just happened with Officer Dial in that trial when they come back and charge, one of the charges is possession of an instrument of a crime. That's virtually impossible as a working, functioning police officer who was sworn, who was a sworn police officer. He gets convicted of possession of an instrument of a crime. That's madness. Okay, so why would I not want to go to Bucks County, and why would I not want to go to somewhere else where I'm feeling like I'm not going to be fighting against maybe the persons out there in the street, but also the person that's supposed to be prosecuting these cases. So those are some of the things we're going to look at. We're going to try to do our best to get respected again as a union, where people will want to come to us and say, we need your endorsement. I mean, we do know that there was a brouhaha over why there wasn't no endorsement from the FOP to a candidate. And I believe that should never, ever happen again, that people should be knocking on our doors, begging us for an endorsement, not because, because we're going to, we can do anything nefarious, but the mere fact that we're willing to get our members out there, we'll get our retirees out there, and we're going to get out in the street, and we're going to fight for that candidate. So those are the things that, will help kind of build upon the
to kind of
retention
piggyback off
factor
what he said
and
earlier
the
about the contract.
retirees.
We're praying, even though we're running against a current regime who's fighting for a contract for us right now. We're praying every day that we get a home run contract because we need it. We want to see a huge contract. We're praying for it every day. But if you rewind back to the last 17 years of the contracts we've had with a lot of the same regime, we were looking at, it was roughly, I think it was quoted at 55% in 17 years. If you do the math on that, that's like, what is that? 3%, 3.2%. You do 3.2% over the cost of 17 years, take out the cost of living, which is roughly 2 to 2.5, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. How much of that really of a raise did we get in that time frame? So I'll go up against with contracts against anybody, especially looking at those numbers. I'm not worried one bit about that. I welcome the argument. I welcome the battle. I give me as many hurdles on that as you want, and I'll jump them. Let's go,
No, and if anything, you and the other guys, the other teams pressuring the FOP now, it forces their hand to want a better contract, because if they don't, so I mean, like you said, you don't, whether you vote for a president or not, like national, like president of the United States, whether you like him or not, you always want to see him do well because it does well for the country. Same thing here, whether you vote for Poplar or vote for you or whoever, you want to see them do well, because doing well means it's doing well for the union and the members. So you don't root against someone who's trying to do better for you. But I do think by you guys coming forward and the other teams coming forward and forcing their hand more, they have to ante up a little bit more to show they're worth having. So even worst case scenario for you guys is you don't make it or no other teams make it, and a really good contract comes up. It doesn't go down in vain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't go down in vain.
I agree. We're all on the same team, and it's better to fight together. We're stronger together. And that's what I said. Like I said, I talked to Kenny, and he's running against me. And I like the guy. We get along. We share ideas back and forth with stuff, because ultimately everyone running should be doing that. We should all be having conversations, because not one mind is the only way, right? I know they say experience, but there's other minds and other eyes. When something isn't working or you can't figure something out, what do? You walk away from it, and then you come back and look at it. The fresher the eyes on problems that have been sitting are going to create better avenues for you. And that's all it is. So it's not so much lack of experience or not experience. It's just that they've been there. And it's not that we have to be enemies, because that's not the way I look at anybody. I don't look at anyone on this department. I want to fight for everybody. And we just have to put minds together, and we have to work together. And that's why I said in the beginning, they did a lot of good stuff, but it's been a long time. And I think it's time for new eyes up there, some new images, and to roll with the change of what's going on in the department. It's just time for it.
I think Team Mellon, more than just a contract, is a pretty good slogan.
I like it.
All right, that's that was my questions on. I just already interjected and did one of his questions. So he's gonna.
Listen, I have experience. So we just talked a little bit about the discipline Sharrod was talking about. This is really it's a one question, 2-part kind of thing. So and you and I, full disclosure, we've talked about what I went through. But with the amount of cops being like frivolously disciplined or the knee-jerk firings we see, how do you plan? And I know you kind of answered a little bit of it with having possible lawyers on your team, but other than that, what are some of the plans making the arbitration process and the PBI process work better, especially for like wrongfully disciplined or overly disciplined officers? Like that's the first part of the question. So what is actually the plan? It's definitely, like I said, you answered a good amount of it, having some lawyers on the team, but again, being on the other side of this, knowing how that stuff works, I can tell you, brother, it needs a lot of work. I don't care who I'm talking to. It is, and if you don't want to listen to me, you can ask Joe Balone, you can ask Richie Nicoletti, you can ask Dial. Whether it's a policy or it's a criminal matter, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. Even when you win, it's still an absolute mess. You're never really made whole.
No, you're right, Chris. And like you said, I didn't know your story until we met and talked, and when you explained everything to me. Before that, like you said, even though you got your job back and all that happened and it worked out for you, you're not whole, because here's someone that was on the job. I never heard the back end, that nobody reports what the ending is. You only hear the beginning portion of it and what they did to you and what had happened, and the stuff you showed me on how people can change and manipulate people's messages. It blew my mind. I didn't think that was even possible. So again, I'm sorry for that. And I appreciate you educating me on that, because I've been telling everybody about that. It blew my mind what you showed me, that can be done. And the fact that the city screwed up and didn't come to terms. And that's the one thing I always say as cops. We can screw something up, but if we say, I screwed up, I'm sorry, like this isn't right, we made a mistake. That happens. People make mistakes. But what happened to you was not fair, and a lot of other officers, and this the arbitration process. That's why they say 70 to 85% of the officers fired win in arbitration and get their job back. So that tells you there's a problem somewhere. Everything I've been looking at, I truly believe the problem is way back in the beginning. I don't think it's as it goes deep, because just like you and I spoke about, it gets too deep in the process and you got attorneys and arbitrators involved and people are going and we have testimony going. It's too late then to pull back the reins, right?
Right.
I think it has to be done in the beginning. What mistakes are being made early on these investigations? And again, that's all part of the thing that has to change. I think that's where you have to stop. You have to go right back to the beginning of the disciplinary process. If you pull our disciplinary process up in the disciplinary code, you got like 8 chapters and then like 25 pages of charges that are so broad, from a reprimand to termination.
Oh,
I don't understand.
It's beyond subjective. The language they
Yes.
use, it's strictly lawyer language for the city, because it becomes so subjective that if you look at conduct unbecoming, it can be it's basically a disregard of the commissioner's orders. So it's like, well, I didn't wear my hat, or I was selling crack to hookers. It's like that's the gap. It's serious. That's the gap. It's like, well, you disobeyed the commissioner's orders. It's like it could be anything. So that's kind of their catch all. And it's like, no, that needs to be more well defined. So you can't just sit there and slap people with it and go, well, it's conduct unbecoming. It's like, even when, like, like you said, it's well, whatever. But yeah. Is there a way though, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so what we were told, I think we were talking about it before, and I was talking with some of the other guys who have been in disciplined and still going through the process and trying to come out on the other end. Is there a way, and I'm just speaking again from experience, but there are a lot of cops who are looking to have this, because I think this becomes part of the problem of retention is cops being over disciplined or wrongfully disciplined. Is there a way to hold the city's feet to a more financial fire? So, okay, you get made whole. Let's just say you're on your rear run for 2 years. You finally get your job back. What I've always, and I've talked about this with other cops, what seems, and hopefully this could be a possibility to have in a contract, instead of them trying to do the math when you get your job back, and they always carry the one in their favor. You never get the money you calculate. They're always well off. What could possibly happen is, so if a cop is fired on a Monday and he puts a grievance in on Tuesday, that Tuesday, because there's a grievance in, the city should automatically be putting that officer's checks into some kind of escrow account. So if he gets his job back in 2 years, the arbitrator rules he gets his job back, he's made whole. Not only is all that money right there, but it's been collecting at least 2 or 3% interest to give that officer. So just like that, it can be siphoned from that escrow account into a direct deposit. He doesn't have to wait. I had to wait 15 months to get my money. Okay. And you still don't get the correct amount. So is there a way that can happen? And on top of that, when you get that money, the other problem is you get it in one lump sum plus that year's pay. So you come back, by the time you're back, you're already working as a cop. You still don't get your money. And then all of a sudden, that year's pay comes in plus the 2 years they owe you. So when you go to the IRS, they're looking like you made almost $300,000. So now you're in a tax bracket that's 11% higher.
Yep.
And you do that, you just lost $33,000 that year in taxes because of, again, the city's fault. So I lose money. So this is the kind of, when they say made whole, it's the biggest crock. I don't know if there's ways to really find like we were talking about the pension. Like if you're retired, you should have that check within 2 weeks. If not,
and Chris, and you're right. Like you just said, and is there ways to find ways? It's funny you say that because, and I hate to keep going back to the ice hockey, but I tell all the ice hockey players, find a way. There's always a way. So for your question there, what could you do with that money if we could get all that into escrow? Can that be done? Absolutely can be done. We have to figure out the pathway to make it happen. But yeah, that would be phenomenal. And then once it's in that escrow, instead of getting that one lump sum and getting whacked at 11% higher tax bracket for whatever $300-something thousand you were saying, why not find another way to channel that money? Maybe you can channel that into some other type of retirement, and then pull from it and take penalty on that and how you want to take it.
Right.
There's a lot you can do when it comes to money sitting in a bank, right? We just have to find the way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a great way.
I just think it also it acts as a bit of a deterrent maybe for the city to knee-jerk fire people when they know, hey, there's a very good chance this guy or these guys are going to get their job back, and it's going to cost us tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars if they are held more financially responsible. Not just, oh, well, we have to give them the money we owe them. Not just that, but hey, maybe we have to pay the taxes on this. Or how about this? If you go out, you're on your rear end for 2 years, 3 years, you have to go out and find another job. So now I'm out finding another job, and maybe you're already making, you're not going to make the money you were probably as a cop if you're not like a tradesperson. So maybe in the 2 years you're out on your butt, you make $60,000, $70,000. All right, not a lot. But then the city wants that taken off of what they owe you, which absolves them of the punitive damages that they cost. That should be something that should absolutely not be allowed. They are literally getting away with that financial problem they caused. And the more you're working while you're out, the more absolution they're getting financially. And that should not be allowed. That they should have to cover that. That's just my opinion. But that would make them think twice before they just fired somebody for political reasons.
Well, when you go back and look, also remember that that change that disciplinary code came during the contract. Or after when that came during the contract. So when everybody yelling that we're gonna get paid in the contract, I think we got a little bit of money. I think that's when it gave us one of those first bonuses. But with that bonus came, catch all, discipline unspecified. What was that? Unspecified. Kind of becoming unspecified, which can hammer you for if you breathe wrong, you're hammered. So going back to what you said, absolutely. I think also is listen. If they saying that this city is a sanctuary, well, FOP is going to be a sanctuary underneath us. In order to come to get our members, you're going to have to come through us to get them. So I'm prepared for the fight. I think a lot of the guys on our team is prepared for the fight. That nobody on our team is afraid of anything or anybody. So particularly once you see, majority of our team and their mindsets are everybody has had to deal with something in this job. So we don't have a bunch of people that have been able to go unscathed. It's a very difficult job to do, just without anything else to it. But to try to do it and be perfect in it, that's one of the things that's in that ABLE training where it says we're trying to make no mistakes. How can I go around not making a mistake? It's humanly impossible not to make a mistake. We only know one that didn't make a mistake, and he was 2,000 plus years ago. So that's something right there that has to be looked at. We're gonna make mistakes along the way. But do I cover up the mistake or I own the mistake and I move forward? If I own the mistake, I move forward, then it should be handled. And everything that happens does not have to be attributed to discipline. I don't understand why if something happens, the first thing is it's a disciplinary problem. Some things are not a disciplinary problem. Some things are a training issue. Some things are, hey, listen, that happened. Let's not let it happen again. Even when I heard about your story, I was in civil affairs. So there's not much anybody can tell me about the First Amendment that I don't know. I mean, I've had to study the U.S. Constitution backwards and forwards because my job was to make sure everybody's constitutional rights was protected. And so, therefore, when they turn around and say, well, you're fired based upon saying X, Y, and Z, well, where's that in the Constitution? Because I am working for the government, and it does say the government shall not infringe upon these rights. So, therefore, a lot of these things have to be looked at. And we have to make sure that if you're going to have these directives and everything else, they should be in accordance to U.S. law and in accordance to the Constitution and Pennsylvania law. You just can't, you're just willy-nilly in it. So it's almost like have a military code of where you're guilty before innocent. And that's not how the United States of America is set up to be. I'm innocent before proven guilty.
We went a little bit longer than I thought we were going to go, but it was good. I had a good time. Hope you guys did too. That pretty much concludes. No problem. That concludes the question portion of the interview.
Well, thank you for having me.
From here, I'm going to give you guys last minute words. But before I do that, Sharrod, I know you saw it. There's no way I'm letting you. There's no way. There's no way
I'm
going to let you look the sharpest on here.
I came prepared. I came prepared.
So I'm going to, Sharrod, you can go first.
I came prepared.
Last minute thing you want to say? If not, I'll move it on to Knute.
Sure. Well, once again, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. Uh, Again, we're not concerned about everything else going on with any other team. Our team is a very bold team. We're prepared to fight. If you know me, you know that I just don't attach my name to anything willy nilly. So I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Also, with that being said, again, I have the experience. I'll be running for the chaplain position. I have going on 14 years of being a deacon at Enoch Tabernacle Baptist Church. I have relationships with the Catholic community. I have relationships in the Muslim community, and I even have relationships in the Buddhist community. So, where the police department has expounded upon who the members are. So we have to look at even making sure that those persons receive services in their times of grief. So, that's why I'm running for that position. There will be there will still be the Michael the Archangel Society will still be there. But when there is a funeral that has to be done at, a larger church, and they may not be wanting to go down to the Basilica, we have to be able to think about those things. I know they do a good job at it, but we should make sure that it's something that we definitely enshrined in what the FOP can do. Also, and I'm also looking at the humanistic side of it, is where I just believe that there should be a spiritual component when people are saying, I'm going to PBI and my livelihood is on the line. There should be somebody willing to go down there and want to sit down there and pray for you and give you a word of comfort. And I'm also concerned about the high divorce rate that we just try to just pretend to turn away from. So I would like to get back and to see it. Like, maybe you might want to talk to somebody about your marriage, but if you might need a Christian component to it or spiritual component to it, I want to make sure we have that, because the rate of marriages the rate of marriages tend to lead to a high rate of alcoholism, which leads to a high rate of suicide. So everything is connected, but the stress starts right in the job. So I want to start seeing that stress alleviated on the men and women going out there daily, and then we can have a really good
Yeah, I
functioning
just want
police
to thank
department.
you guys. I mean, I guess we've been here for like almost an hour now, and it's been great. It's been a great time talking with you guys and having a good conversation. We're excited for this run, and I think that the majority of our team, when we picked it and put it together, we were looking for round pegs and round holes. We were trying to find people that were going to do the job and work and not watch the clock, and weren't looking for just hanging with our buddies. Like, we knew we needed to have fighters and workers and people that were willing to put down sacrifice of their own time to help our members. And I think we built a really strong team. A lot of great minds, a lot of great execution in everything we talk about. And we're excited to hit the ground running in October after the election comes out. And I really appreciate it today. I really appreciate you giving me the time to come on here. The fact of being the first presidential candidate on a podcast, pretty cool. Glad it was with you guys as well. And I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Again, it was our pleasure, and that's pretty much it. Good luck in the
Thank
election.
You.
Wish everyone nothing but the best. Sharrod, I'll be
Thank
seeing
you
you around. Knute, I'll be seeing you. Enjoy the
You
rest
got
of your day, fellas. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
We're still on.
Good.
We're still on.
Before we're wrapping it up,
I'm just going to take this time just to say that was our first interview with the presidential candidate for this year's FOP Lodge 5 race. This is our official offer to any other candidate. If you saw this, if you want to come on and give your team a chance to say your piece, we're more than willing. We're happy to have anyone on. That goes for the incumbent. That goes for any of the candidates. Okay. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe. Now you can take your headphones off.
I can take my headphones off.
Have a good day,
Thanks.
everyone.